Before he could continue, a voice echoed from the back of the room. What if the only thing unpredictable was kindness? The crowd turned. Evan Holt stepped forward, his face pale but eyes burning with quiet strength. Cameras flashed instantly. Halvern's voice turned cold. Security. No need, Evan said calmly, holding up his ID badge from the transit yard. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to remind everyone what this started with. A birthday gift for a child. A child who lost everything because of rules written by people who forgot what empathy feels like. The room went silent. Even the press drones hovered motionless. Evan looked straight into the cameras. You can call me a criminal. You can take my job, my home, my future, but you can't take away what that doll did. It showed us that love doesn't belong to one species. Halvern's face turned red. That's enough. But the damage was done. The crowd had heard him. Reporters shouted questions. Flashes filled the air, and the live feed spread across every colony channel within minutes. Back in the governor's office, Celine watched the broadcast with a small smile. He just lit the fuse, she whispered. Down in the safe dome, Lyra and Miri watched too. The little girl clutched her glowing doll, whispering, Mama, he's brave. Lyra's voice trembled. He's human, she said softly. Truly human. And as night fell over New Terra, the people began to choose sides, not between species, but between fear and compassion. The storm was coming, and this time, it wouldn't be stopped by silence. The night sky above New Terra shimmered like it hadn't in years. For the first time in a long time, the city's high towers dimmed their neon light so that people could see the stars again. It was the governor's order. A night of unity, she had called it. Across the colony, screens showed a single image, a smiling alien child holding a glowing doll, standing beside a human who had risked everything for her. That child was Miri, and tonight was her real birthday celebration. In the governor's garden, under a dome of clear glass, guests began to gather. Humans, aliens, children, and workers alike. There were no uniforms, no titles, no divisions. Only laughter and light. The air smelled of fruit and flowers, a rare luxury in a city of steel. Soft music played in the background, the same tune the Starlight Doll had once sung. At the center of it all, Miri stood beside her mother, Lyra, wearing a small white dress. Her glowing skin shimmered like moonlight as she looked up in awe at the real stars above. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. You see them, my love? Miri nodded, smiling wide. They're prettier than I dreamed. Lyra knelt beside her, brushing a strand of silver hair from her daughter's face. They're brighter because people finally looked up together. At the far edge of the garden, Evan Holt stood quietly, still wearing his old jacket, though now patched and clean. His ribs had healed, but the scars reminded him of everything that had changed. When the guards at the gate saw him, they didn't stop him, they saluted him. He smiled awkwardly and walked in. The crowd began to notice. A soft murmur spread. The human engineer who had changed everything. People moved aside as he passed. Some nodded, some clapped, but most just smiled. Miri saw him first. She ran through the crowd and wrapped her arms around his waist. Evan, she shouted. You came. He laughed, kneeling down to her level. Wouldn't miss it for the world, birthday girl. She held up her Starlight Doll proudly. Look, it still sings. The doll hummed softly, glowing like a tiny sun between them. Evan smiled. Seems like it's happier than ever. Lyra approached, her steps gentle but sure. You shouldn't have come, she said softly, but there was no anger in her tone, only gratitude. Evan met her gaze. I didn't come for the crowd. I came to see the stars, Lyra smiled faintly. Then you picked the right night. As the celebration continued, Governor Celine Voss stepped onto the stage. The lights dimmed and her voice echoed gently through the air. Tonight, she began, we celebrate more than a birthday. We celebrate the moment we remembered what it means to be alive, to care for one another no matter where we come from. She turned toward Miri and smiled. This little girl reminded us that love doesn't need permission, and this man reminded us that courage is not about fighting enemies. It's about standing up for strangers. Applause filled the dome. Even the air seemed lighter. Celine raised a hand. From this day forward, emotional technology will no longer be restricted by species. Every child, human or alien, will have the right to dream, to love, and to feel. The crowd erupted in cheers. Some cried openly. Others embraced. Lyra's hands trembled as she looked at Evan. "You did this," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, you both did. I just didn't look away." Later that night, after the celebration faded and people drifted home, Evan found himself sitting on a small bench outside the dome. The sky above was clearer than he had ever seen. He closed his eyes and listened. The distant laughter of children, the hum of the doll's song, and the quiet sound of peace. Lyra walked up behind him. "She's asleep," she said softly. "With her doll in her arms, of course," Evan smiled. "Good. It suits her." They sat side by side in silence for a while. The stars shimmered above them like silver fire. Lyra spoke again, her voice tender. "You know, before the war, our people used to say that every good deed becomes a light in the sky. Maybe that's why the stars shine." Evan looked up. "Then tonight the sky must be full," she smiled. "It is because of you." He turned to her. "Because of us." From the city below, a group of children released small paper lanterns into the air. They floated upward, glowing softly, joining the stars above. Among them was one little girl's lantern, a simple note tied to it, written in uneven handwriting, "Thank you. Human." The camera in the sky caught it all. The rising lights, the shimmering stars, and the two figures sitting quietly beneath them. A voiceover played on colony screens that night. "Sometimes, it doesn't take a soldier to change the world, just someone willing to care." The broadcast ended with the final image, Miri's Starlight Doll glowing in her hands, its light reflecting in her joyful eyes. Above her, the stars burned brighter than ever, as if the universe itself smiled back. "An emotion crystal, ma'am. Dangerous and unauthorized." Celine crouched down, meeting Miri's frightened eyes. The little alien girl sniffed and held up the doll. "It sings," she whispered. The governor took the doll carefully. The light touched her hands, and for a brief second it glowed warmly, reacting to her gentle heart. Celine looked at the officer. "Dangerous, you said?" He hesitated. "Yes, ma'am. It could remind us we still have hearts," she interrupted quietly. She turned to Evan. "You risked your life for them?" Evan nodded, his breath ragged. "Someone had to." Celine stood tall. "Then I'll handle this from here. These two are under my protection." The guards lowered their weapons reluctantly. The officer looked furious but dared not argue. Celine turned to Lyra. "Take your daughter and come with me. No more hiding." Lyra stared in disbelief. "Why would you help us?" The governor smiled faintly. "Because once a human helped me when no one else would. And I never forgot." As the group left the dome, the patrol lights faded behind them. The doll in Miri's arms hummed softly again, glowing with a gentle, steady light. Evan limped beside them, every step painful but filled with quiet pride. For the first time in years, he felt something stronger than fear. He felt hope. And far above, as dawn broke over New Terra City, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if watching a small act of humanity spark a change that no one could stop. The story began to spread before the sun even rose. A bystander's recording, shaky, grainy but powerful, and showed everything: the glowing Starlight Doll, the crying alien child, the human man shielding her from the guards, and the moment the governor herself stepped in. Within hours, it was everywhere. Screens across New Terra City flashed headlines: "Human engineer defends alien mother and child." "Governor Voss halts arrest after emotional tech scandal." "Starlight Doll sparks debate on humanity and equality." The video ran on every feed, every holo display, every news screen in the cafes. The people who had walked past Lyra and Miri in the market now stopped to watch, shame written on their faces. Evan sat in his small apartment that morning, staring at the news. He hadn't slept. His ribs still hurt from the guard strike, and his mind buzzed with confusion. He never meant to become a symbol. He just wanted to help a little girl on her birthday. But now his face was everywhere. Messages poured into his terminal, some praising him, others warning him. "You're a hero. You've started something. You're in danger. Leave the city." He ignored them all. His only thought was of Lyra and Miri. The governor had taken them to the safe sector, promising protection, but he hadn't seen them since. Then came a soft chime at his door. When he opened it, a small news drone hovered there. "Evan Holt," it said in a calm voice. "Can we ask why you risked your career for 2 aliens?" Evan looked straight at the lens. "Because kindness isn't illegal yet." The clip went viral in minutes. Down in the safe district, Lyra sat beside her daughter's bed. Miri slept peacefully for the first time in months. Her arms wrapped around the Starlight Doll. The doll glowed softly, not bright, but steady like a living heartbeat. Lyra whispered, "You're safe now, my star." But outside, the world was no longer quiet. Protesters gathered near the colony's main gates. Humans and aliens stood side by side, holding signs that read, "Love is not a crime. Let the children dream. End the emotional tech ban." What began as a small act of compassion had become a movement. The governor, Celine Voss, watched from her office tower, her reflection trembling in the glass. "It's growing faster than I thought," she murmured. Her advisor frowned. "The council won't like this. They'll say you're encouraging rebellion." Celine turned to him calmly. "Maybe it's time rebellion had a heart." By evening, news anchors debated the issue live. Was the law outdated? Were humans truly protecting themselves, or just afraid of feeling empathy for others? In the background of every screen, the now famous image of Miri hugging her doll played on repeat, her small alien face glowing with pure happiness, while a human knelt beside her in defiance. Children began asking their parents why the girl was crying. Artists painted murals of her on the walls. Someone even remixed the doll's song into a melody that filled the city plazas. The governor made a statement on the public network. "We call this an alien issue, but it's not. It's a human issue, a question of who we are when no one is watching." Her words echoed across the colony. Meanwhile, Evan walked alone through the upper district, avoiding patrols. He wore his hood low, but people recognized him anyway. Some nodded with respect. Others whispered his name like it was dangerous. At a small stall, an old human vendor handed him a cup of steaming tea. "On the house," the man said quietly. "My daughter watched the video. She cried. Said you made her believe in people again." Evan smiled faintly. "Then it was worth it." As he turned to leave, a small alien boy ran up and pressed something into his hand in a folded piece of paper. Inside was a drawing, a human, an alien mother, and a little girl holding a glowing doll under a sky full of stars. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "You gave us light." Evan's throat tightened. He slipped the drawing into his jacket pocket and whispered, "No, kid, you did." That night, from the window of her new room, Miri looked up at the stars. The doll hummed softly beside her, sensing her joy. "Mama," she said sleepily, "do you think the stars know my name?" Lyra smiled, brushing her daughter's hair back. "After tonight," she said softly, "I think the whole galaxy knows." And high above the city, from the domes to the towers, from the refugee camps to the skyports, people looked up wondering if maybe, just maybe, the light they saw was more than stars. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. 3 days after the video went viral, the city of New Terra was no longer the same. On the main plaza, huge screens still played the moment the Starlight Doll glowed in Miri's hands. People gathered every evening, cheering for the human engineer who had stood against the law. Children, both human and alien, carried handmade dolls wrapped in silver foil, singing the song the real one had hummed. But far from the cheers, inside a cold glass tower that reached the clouds, anger was growing. The top floor of Helion Corp headquarters, makers of the Starlight Doll, was silent except for the echo of heavy footsteps. Director Halvern, a sharp-eyed man with silver hair and a colder smile, slammed a report onto the conference table. "The numbers are collapsing," he said. "Our stock dropped 12% overnight. People are demanding we open emotional tech sales to aliens. That will destroy our monopoly." Executives muttered nervously around the table. One woman cleared her throat. "Sir, it's not just a business issue anymore. The governor is involved. Public sympathy is," Halvern cut her off with a glare. "Public sympathy doesn't pay bills. We built this company on control. Emotion crystals are dangerous in the wrong hands. That's what the law says, and that's what we'll remind them of." He pressed a button. A holographic photo of Evan Holt appeared in the air. "This man cost us billions," Halvern growled. "He broke regulations, interfered with property, and spread false hope. I want him silenced before this spreads to the core worlds. A quiet voice from the corner said, "What if silencing him makes him a martyr?" Halvern turned. It was Dr. Rin Cole, one of the lead engineers who had helped design the original Starlight Doll years ago. She looked pale but steady. "People are listening now," she said. "For the first time they care about more than profit." Halvern smirked. "And you think feelings will change policy?" She met his gaze. "They already are." Meanwhile, in the lower district, Evan sat in a small medical bay. His ribs were wrapped, his face bruised. The nurse, an elderly alien woman, finished applying a patch. "You should rest," she said kindly. "I can't," Evan replied. "They'll come after her, after both of them." The door slid open and a familiar figure entered, Governor Celine Voss. Her coat was unbuttoned, her expression firm. "You're right," she said. "They're already moving." Evan stood slowly. "Hellion?" She nodded. "They've issued a statement. They claim the Starlight Doll was tampered with, that it could have caused an emotional contagion. They're calling it a malfunction." Evan laughed bitterly. "Of course they are. Can't let people believe compassion is stronger than their greed." Selene placed a small tablet on the table. On it played a live feed, a protest outside Helion Tower. Hundreds of humans and aliens stood together chanting for change. "Public pressure is rising," she said. "But so is corporate pushback. They're calling you a criminal." "I don't care what they call me," Evan said. "I just want Lyra and Miri safe." Selene's voice softened. "They are. I've moved them to the protected dome in the governor's quarter. But they won't be safe for long if this turns political." Evan clenched his fists. "Then let's make it moral instead." Hours later, Helion Corp held a press conference. Director Halvern stood before flashing lights, his smile rehearsed. "Helion Corporation has always served humanity," he said. "Our technology ensures emotional balance across colonies. What happened with the illegal activation of one of our dolls was unfortunate and dangerous." A reporter raised her hand. "Are you saying the doll that reacted to the alien child was faulty?" Halvern's smile thinned. "It was manipulated. Emotion crystals can be unpredictable in alien environments. That's why regulations exist." Evan logged into his work terminal and opened the commerce grid. His fingers hovered over the purchase code for the Starlight Doll. He stared at the glowing button for a long time, his mind full of Miri's smile. Then he pressed it. Transaction complete. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled again, a warning, or maybe a promise. The next evening, the rain had stopped, but the city still shimmered with wet reflections. Neon signs flickered in the puddles and steam rose from vents beneath the sidewalks. The marketplace was quieter now, most of the shops closing for the night. Evan Holt stood outside the same toy shop, a small box in his hand. Inside it rested the Starlight Doll, wrapped carefully in soft silver paper. He had spent most of his savings buying it. The clerk had stared at him like he was mad. "You're giving it to an alien?" the man behind the counter had said in disbelief. "You know that's illegal, right? That thing's tagged with emotion crystal tech. You'll both end up on the watch list." Evan had met his gaze calmly. "Then maybe the law is wrong." The clerk shook his head, muttering, "Humans helping aliens never ends well," but took the credits anyway. Now, standing on the damp street, Evan looked down at the glowing box. The crystal inside pulsed faintly, responding to the warmth of his hand as if it could feel his intent. He thought of Miri's wide eyes and Lyra's tired smile. It was worth it. He walked toward the lower docks where the city lights faded into darkness. The air smelled of oil, metal, and sea salt from the water channels nearby. He passed repair shops, sleeping droids, and a few homeless workers huddled near exhaust vents for warmth. Under the old East Dome, he found them. Lyra sat against the wall, her arms wrapped around her daughter. A dim power light flickered above them. Miri's head rested on her mother's lap, her small chest rising and falling in sleep. Evan stepped quietly closer. Lyra heard his boots and looked up sharply, her eyes glowing faintly violet in the dark. When she recognized him, she frowned. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. Evan knelt down and held out the small box. "I brought something," he said. Lyra didn't take it. "What is that?" He smiled gently. "A birthday present." Her eyes widened in alarm. No, you didn't." He opened the lid. Inside, the Starlight Doll shimmered with soft blue light. Its crystal heart pulsed like a heartbeat, lighting the shadows around them. Miri stirred awake, blinking at the glow. "Mama," she whispered, her voice sleepy but excited. "It's the doll." Lyra's voice trembled. "Evan, you can't give this to her." "The patrols, she deserves it," he said firmly. "It's just a toy. A toy that makes a little girl smile." Lyra shook her head. "To them, it's not just a toy. It's a weapon. They say emotion crystals can disrupt control systems. They banned them after the war." Evan's jaw tightened. "That's an excuse to keep your people small. To make you feel less." He gently placed the doll in Miri's hands. The little girl gasped as it began to glow brighter, responding to her touch. The crystal heart shone like a tiny star. She hugged it close, and the doll's soft mechanical voice began to hum a tune. Low, gentle, full of warmth, the light reflected in Miri's eyes. And for the first time since the war, Lyra saw her daughter laugh. Evan smiled at the sight. It was the most beautiful sound he had heard in years. But then, a cold, metallic voice cut through the air. "Unauthorized tech detected. Scanning source." A red light swept across the dome, and the hum of engines followed. A patrol drone descended, its camera lens glowing crimson. Lyra froze, clutching her daughter. "Hide it," she whispered. Evan stepped forward, shielding them both. "Leave it," he said quietly. "It's too late." The drone's scanner locked onto the Starlight Doll. "Violation, alien possession of emotional crystal technology." "Report submitted." Evan's mind raced. "No," he said aloud. "This isn't her fault. I bought it. Human subject identified. Both subjects under arrest pending verification." Lyra's hand shook. "They'll take Miri," she whispered. "Not if I can stop them," Evan said. He took a step toward the drone, raising his hands. "You want someone to blame? Take me." Before the drone could respond, the doll in Miri's hands began to glow brighter, so bright that the whole dome lit up in blue and gold light. A wave of warmth spread through the air. Holographic lights flickered around them, forming shapes, memories. The projection showed a burning alien world, cities falling, mothers clutching their children as ships fled into space. It was Miri's memory, her home destroyed. The drone's scanners froze, overwhelmed by emotional resonance. Its systems glitched, repeating the same word. Interference. Interference. Lyra stared at the hologram in disbelief. "It's showing her pain," she whispered. "It's alive." Evan looked at the doll glowing in Miri's arms. "No," he said softly. "It's showing her love." The drone made a sharp electronic whine, then shot upward, vanishing into the night. The silence that followed was heavy and sacred. Lyra fell to her knees, holding Miri tightly. Tears streamed down her face, lit by the fading glow of the doll. Evan knelt beside them. "You'll be okay," he said quietly. "I promise." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with something between fear and gratitude. "You risked everything," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, I just remembered what it means to be human." Above them, the city lights flickered. Somewhere far away, an alarm began to sound. The beginning of a storm much larger than any of them could see. But under that broken dome, for one small moment, there was only light, the kind born from love, courage, and the spark of something far greater than law. The morning after the incident, the city was uneasy. The night before, people across the colony had seen flashes of light above the East Dome. Some said it was a power surge. Others whispered it was alien tech gone wrong. But deep beneath those rumors, under the cracked metal roof of the dome, 3 souls sat in silence, Evan, Lyra, and little Miri, holding the glowing Starlight Doll. The doll's light had dimmed to a faint shimmer, but the memory it had shown still haunted them. Miri had cried herself to sleep in her mother's arms, whispering the name of her lost homeworld. Lyra sat awake beside her, trembling. Evan had not moved all night. His jacket was soaked from the rain that had fallen through the cracks in the roof, but he didn't care. He kept watch, his eyes scanning every shadow. When the first siren echoed in the distance, he knew it had begun. The metallic growl of hover trucks filled the air. Blue lights flashed through the fog. Voices shouted orders, your sharp robotic official. Colony Security Division. "Step out with your hands visible," Lyra gasped. "They found us," Evan stood quickly. "Stay behind me." The entrance burst open. 4 armored guards stormed in, rifles humming with charged energy. The red glow of their visors filled the dark space. "Unauthorized technology detected," one barked. "Surrender immediately." Evan stepped forward, his hands raised. "I'm the one you're looking for," he said. I bought the doll. It's my responsibility. The lead officer, and a tall human with a cold face and silver badge, sneered. A human protecting aliens? That's a first. Lyra held Miri tighter, whispering, "Don't speak, my love." The officer scanned the doll in Miri's arms. The crystal inside pulsed faintly, reacting to their fear. "That's high-level tech," he said. "Classed as emotional interference equipment. Illegal for aliens to possess and illegal for humans to distribute." Evan's jaw tightened. "It's a toy for a child." The officer stepped closer. "A toy that broadcasts alien emotion frequencies into our systems? You could destabilize the colony network with that thing." Evan shook his head. "You people are afraid of feelings." The officer's voice hardened. "You've crossed the line, worker. This is a charge of tech smuggling and alien aid. You'll be detained for questioning." Lyra moved forward suddenly. "No, he didn't do anything wrong. He just wanted to help my daughter." The guards aimed their rifles instantly. "Step back, alien." Miri started to cry, clutching the doll. The crystal flared again, brighter this time, filling the dome with a wave of blue light. It shimmered across the metal walls like sunlight on water. The guards froze. For a moment, their visors flickered, showing confusion. The light carried emotion, pure, raw emotion, sadness, love, fear, and hope all at once. Evan stared as holograms began forming again. Images of Miri's home, her laughter before the war, her father's face, the sound of her mother's voice promising safety, the room filled with the pulse of life itself. The officer shouted, "Shut it down!" One of the guards tried to grab the doll. Evan moved first. He stepped in front of Miri and pushed the guard back. "Don't touch her." The guard swung the butt of his rifle into Evan's ribs. He fell hard but didn't move away. "You'll have to go through me," he said, coughing. Lyra screamed, shielding her child. "Please, she's just a little girl." The officer kicked the box aside, glaring at the glowing doll. "Confiscate it." Before they could reach it, a voice came from the doorway, and a calm, strong female voice. "That won't be necessary." Everyone turned. A woman in a white coat stepped into the dome, her badge shining gold under the light. It was Governor Celine Voss, the highest-ranking human in the colony. Her eyes swept over the scene. The soldiers, the crying child, the bleeding man, and the glowing doll. "What's going on here?" The officer saluted stiffly. "Ma'am, these aliens are in possession of illegal tech." This man aided them. "I was securing the contraband." The governor's gaze landed on Miri. "Contraband?" she asked softly. "That's a toy." The rain fell in slow silver lines over the shining streets of New Terra City. Neon signs blinked above the crowded marketplace, their colors reflecting off the wet pavement like spilled light. Between the crowds of humans rushing to finish their shopping, a small alien girl stood still, her bright eyes fixed on a toy inside the glass window of a store. It was a Starlight Doll. Tall, graceful, wrapped in silver fabric that shimmered like moonlight. Its crystal heart glowed softly, pulsing with light each time someone walked near. The tag below said, "It sings when it feels love." Beside the girl stood her mother, Lyra, an alien woman with thin hands and tired eyes. Her skin had a pale violet tone, her clothes torn and faded from travel. She had come from a faraway colony that was destroyed in a war. Now she worked small jobs and cleaning machines, carrying supplies, anything to feed her daughter Miri. Miri pressed her tiny palms against the cold glass. Her reflection mixed with the doll's glowing face. "Mama," she whispered softly. "It's so beautiful." Lyra smiled weakly. "Yes, my heart. It's very beautiful. Can I have it? For my birthday?" Lyra's chest tightened. She looked down at the few coins in her hand. They were barely enough for food tonight. Her throat ached as she said, "Maybe next year, Miri." The child didn't cry. She only nodded and kept looking, her little tail curling around her leg in silence. Inside the store, humans laughed and handed credit chips to the cashier. Their children hugged shiny new toys. A bell rang each time the door opened, releasing warm air and the smell of chocolate. Outside, Lyra and Miri stood in the cold, the rain soaking through their thin clothes. Across the street, a man named Evan Holt watched quietly. He was a human engineer, tall, broad-shouldered, his jacket dark with rain. He had just finished work at the space yard and was on his way home when he saw the two standing by the toy shop window. Something about the scene stopped him. the way the little girl's hand rested on the glass, the way the mother tried to smile even though her eyes were full of pain. It pulled something deep inside him, an old memory of his own mother crying when she couldn't afford his first holobook as a child. He hesitated, watching them. Around him, people moved fast, ignoring the pair like they were invisible, but Evan couldn't look away. The wind grew colder. Miri shivered and Lyra wrapped her in her thin coat. "Let's go, love," she whispered. "We'll find something warm to eat." Miri gave one last look at the glowing doll. "It looks like it's alive," she said softly. "Like it wants to sing for someone." Lyra brushed a strand of silver hair from her daughter's face. "Some things are not for us," she said gently. "But we can still dream." They turned to leave. The child's small feet splashed in the puddles as they walked away from the light and laughter of the store. Evan found himself stepping forward without thinking. He pulled out his umbrella and jogged across the street. "Wait," he said softly. Lyra turned, startled. Her large purple eyes widened as the human stopped before her. I don't mean to bother you," Evan said, holding the umbrella above both of them. "You'll catch cold out here." Lyra hesitated. Many humans avoided her kind, or worse. "We're fine," she said quickly. Evan shook his head. "You're not," he said. His voice was calm but firm. He looked down at Miri, whose eyes sparkled under the neon lights. "It's her birthday?" Lyra lowered her gaze. "Tomorrow," she whispered. "She's turning 7. "That's a special age," Evan said softly. "She deserves something special." Miri smiled shyly. "We just wanted to look at the Starlight Doll. It's okay if we can't have it." Her innocence broke him a little. He wanted to help, but he knew how proud some people could be. "Maybe I could buy it for—" "No," Lyra interrupted quickly. "We don't take charity." Evan stopped. He saw the pride in her eyes, the dignity she still held even when life had taken everything from her. He nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "But take this umbrella at least, please." Lyra looked at him for a long moment, then finally accepted it. "Thank you," she said quietly. Evan smiled and stepped back as they walked away into the rain. He stood there for a while, watching their small figures disappear down the wet street. The sound of the market faded, leaving only the soft hum of the neon lights above. He turned to the window again. The Starlight Doll stared back at him, its crystal heart pulsing gently, almost as if it was alive. A sign below read, "Limited edition, rare emotion crystal, 800 credits." Evan frowned. That was more than 2 weeks of his pay. Still, something about that doll and that child wouldn't leave his mind. He pressed his hand against the glass the same way Miri had. The rain outside grew heavier. Somewhere in the city, thunder rolled. And in that stormy reflection, a human man and a glowing alien toy, the story of kindness and courage quietly began. He whispered to himself, "No one should cry on their birthday." The next morning, the market was bright again. The storm had washed the city clean, leaving drops of water hanging like glass on every sign. But the beauty didn't reach the lower streets where the air smelled of rust and cheap oil. Evan Holt walked quickly, a small bag of tools in his hand. His job at the orbital transit yard started early. Ships rose above the skyline like silver birds, engines glowing blue against the clouds. But his thoughts were not on work. They were still on the little alien girl and her mother. He had seen many refugees before. The galaxy was full of broken colonies and forgotten worlds, but something about that child's quiet hope had stayed in his mind all night. He couldn't sleep. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the reflection of that glowing doll in her eyes, and the pain in her mother's voice. When his shift ended, Evan didn't go home. Instead, he walked back to the marketplace. The toy store was still there, full of laughing human families. But outside near a small food stall, he saw them, Lyra and Miri, sitting close together on a crate, sharing a single piece of bread. Lyra looked tired, her hair pulled back roughly, her clothes still damp from last night's rain. She was whispering a story to her daughter, something about their old home before the war. Miri listened, her eyes full of wonder. Evan took a breath and stepped closer. "Morning," he said softly. Lyra turned sharply. Her hand moved protectively toward Miri. But when she recognized him, the man from last night, her shoulders eased a little. "You again?" she said carefully. Evan smiled, holding up a small container. It's just breakfast, real food. No charity and just sharing, Lyra hesitated. Pride still flickered in her eyes, but Miri's hungry gaze made her soften. Say thank you, she whispered to her daughter. Thank you, Miri said quickly, her small voice bright and sincere. Evan sat down across from them on the edge of the crate. You're welcome, he said, passing her a warm roll. It's your birthday, right? Miri nodded with her mouth full. I'm 7 now. That's lucky, Evan said with a grin. 7 means the stars are watching over you. Lyra smiled faintly at that, though there was sadness in her eyes. In our world, she said quietly, we used to give children a crystal on their 7th birthday, one that glows with their first dream. Evan leaned forward, interested. What kind of crystal? It's from our old planet, she said. It responds to emotion. When a child feels love, it shines. The Starlight Dolls use the same kind, Evan frowned. Then why can't you buy one? Lyra looked down. Because aliens are not allowed to own emotional tech here. They say it's dangerous. They say it interferes with human emotion networks. Her voice broke on the last words. Evan could hear the bitterness beneath her calm tone. So you're punished for feeling, he said quietly. Lyra didn't reply. Miri was humming softly beside her, holding a paper flower she had made from a napkin. She looked so happy in that small moment that Evan's chest ached. He looked toward the toy shop again, where the same Starlight Doll glowed in the window. Its light seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Made for love, banned for love, he thought. Evan turned back to Lyra. What if someone else bought it for her? He asked. Lyra's eyes widened. Don't, she said quickly. If the patrols see her with it, they'll take her away. They think our emotions are unstable. That's not true, Evan said, shaking his head. You're just people trying to live. She gave him a small, sad smile. You sound like someone who still believes humans care. Some of us do, he said softly. We just forget how to show it. For a moment they sat in silence, and human and alien, surrounded by the noise of the market. The sound of engines and voices filled the air, but between them there was only quiet understanding. When the meal was done, Lyra stood up. Thank you for the food, she said politely. We should go before the patrols start their rounds. Evan rose too. Where do you stay? She pointed toward the lower docks. Under the East Dome. There's shelter from the rain. He nodded slowly. If you ever need help, she cut him off gently. We always need help. But help comes with a cost. Her words hit him harder than she knew. He watched as she took her daughter's hand and walked away, their figures growing smaller among the crowd. The market lights flickered on as the sun set. Evan stood there for a long moment, watching until they were gone. Then he looked back at the toy shop one last time. The Starlight Doll was still glowing, soft, gentle, almost alive. Its heart pulsed faintly as if calling to him. Evan sighed. You're trouble, he muttered. But deep down, he already knew what he would do next. That night, when the city lights dimmed and the streets grew quiet,